So here are some of the finished crystals spinning in the sunlight. You can see they're throwing off some reflection. Isn't that pretty? So that's what we're going to make. We're going to make a hanging sun catcher out of a repurposed chandelier crystal. Hey everybody. So you saw the little spinning crystals. I'm going to show you guys how to make these. Okay? And it's pretty simple. You don't need much in the way of supplies, and you don't need much in the way of tools, and you only need very, very basic skills with jewelry, bead stringing, jewelry making skills. So I'm going to show you what you're going to need. Okay? You are going to need a crystal. Of course, you can either use an actual repurposed chandelier crystal. My crystals are vintage chandelier crystals that I've had for over 30 years. And I've been stringing them and restringing them and using them for all different kinds of little decor projects. Or you can buy a new chandelier crystal. If you want vintage old chandelier crystals, you can look on eBay and Etsy. You can go to little antique stores and junk stores and flea markets and places like that. And a lot of people will be selling them. They'll have them in a little bowl or a little dish or a little tray, and they'll be selling them individually. You can find all kinds of shapes and colors. If you just want to get a new one, you can order it online. You can go to a store that sells chandeliers. They'll often have replacement crystals, and you can also find them at craft stores. All of the supplies that I'm using today, I got at a Joann's Fabric and Crafts. And while I was there getting my supplies, I did see some little crystals like this with the strung beads in the jewelry supply section. So you can get these at craft stores too. So you're going to need a crystal of your choice, and just make sure it has a hole drilled in it. That's all you need. Okay? So you're going to need your crystal. Pardon me. Allergies are bad today. And so we've got our crystal. All right. And then we're going to need something to string everything on. All right. So what we're going to string it on is beading wire. And you just need basic beading wire. This is nylon coated stainless steel. This is 7-strand and just flexible. You don't need the extra flexible or the super flexible. That usually is a little more expensive. It's not necessary for this project. This project, you just have a straight piece hanging, so you don't need anything fancy. Just your basic beading wire. It comes in different size spools. This one has a neat dispenser pack. They don't always have that, but you just want nylon coated stainless steel beading wire. Okay? And then per sun catcher, you're going to need 2 crimp beads. Those are these little things right here, okay? And they're sold in a pack. They're called crimp beads. And you'll find them in the findings, the jewelry finding section at the craft store or jewelry supply shops or online. You're going to look for crimp beads. Whatever color of metal you want to use, you can use the smaller crimp beads. You can use these, which are the bigger ones. You can use the tube crimp beads. You just need to use crimp beads. I'm doing the absolute most basic crimp and wire technique. So I'm just using these big crimp beads because they're a little bit easier to work with, and they're just what I had on top in my jewelry supply kit. So you need 2 crimp beads per sun catcher. So just 2, okay? And then to hang it, you're going to need a split ring. And again, these came from Joann's as well, as did the crimp beads. And these are called split rings. They're basically what you put a keychain on, okay? If you have some little keychain rings, just repurpose them. The only reason I'm not using a jump ring is a jump ring is just open where the 2 ends aren't soldered or looped around, and the wire can pull through. You definitely want to use a split ring that spirals around, or you want to use a soldered ring. Okay, you don't want something that's going to have a little hole in it that the wire can pull through. So a split ring is perfect, and whatever size you want and whatever color metal you want. So then on mine, I put some little decorative glass beads down by the crystal. All right. These are just cut glass beads from Joann's, from the craft store. These, I don't believe, were Swarovski. These are just the basic craft grade beads. Now, the one thing that's special about them, they have a kind of an iridescent coating, if you can maybe see in the light, when the light hits them. That's called Aurora Borealis, or AB coating. And sometimes you'll see beads say AB, what have you, and that just means Aurora Borealis. That means it's got that little color shifting iridescent coating. And then for the main part of the strand, I'm using seed beads. Again, these came from Joann's, and I'm using 10-0 seed beads. These are just basic tiny glass beads, and you can kind of tell the ones in the dish when the light hits them, they have a bit of that Aurora Borealis iridescent coating on them as well. So that's it. That's all of the supplies you're going to need for this project. And then for tools, again, very, very simple. You're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers. These are bent nose. You don't have to have bent nose necessarily. They can be straight nose needle nose pliers. They just have to be needle nose pliers. And then you need a wire cutter. That's it. That's all you need. All you need, again, is a crystal, beading wire, 2 crimp beads, a split ring, decorative beads if you choose, seed beads, a wire cutter, and a needle nose plier. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. All right. Our first step is we're going to cut our beading wire. And you're going to want to measure how long you want your suncatcher to be. Plus, you're going to add about 4 to 5 inches. You're definitely going to need a little bit of working room. So with mine, it has this neat dispenser. You just pull out what you want, and then I'm going to add about 5 inches, okay? And then you just cut off what you're not going to use, okay? And this didn't cut completely evenly, and I want it to have a nice clean edge. So I'm going to go back. These plier cutters aren't the best. You want to go back and make sure you get a clean cut. There we go. See, it's got a clean cut on the end. All right. So you've got that with a clean cut. That's our first step. Okay. Next step, I'm going to zoom you guys in a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing. You're going to need, let's get you up. Okay. You're going to need 1 crimp bead, okay? And you're going to need your crystal, okay? And you're going to need your needle nose pliers. So the first step in stringing everything together, you want to pick up your crimp bead with your beading wire, okay? Now, you want to thread it through the hole in your crystal, and then you want to bend that wire back around with about 1 inch to 1.5 inches to spare, okay? And then we are going to thread it back through our crimp bead, and this gets a little tricky, and you kind of, this is when you may need to do a little bit by feel, but you can see right there, I have, okay, my wire is going through the crimp bead, through the hole in the crystal, and back through the crimp bead, okay? So then the next step, you're going to want to hold that tight. You're going to take your needle nose pliers, you're going to grip that crimp bead, you're going to pull it down close to the edge of your crystal, and you're going to squeeze it, and you're going to crush it, okay? And you want to give it a really good crush. All right? See how that is now anchored on there, right? It's not going anywhere. My bead wire has come through the crimp bead, through the crystal, back through the crimp bead, and then I've taken my needle nose pliers and crushed the crimp bead, leaving about 1 inch of a tail. Okay. Next step, if you're going to use decorative beads, which I am, You might as well, because make it a little bit prettier and more sparkly. You're going to go ahead and thread those onto the end of your beading wire, however you want them to be. So I'm doing a bigger one, and I'm going to go back and find a medium one. Okay. And then I'm going to pick up one of the small ones. All right. I'll get that out of the way. And then what you're going to do is you're going to string your beads down. You see where we have this little extra tail of our bead wire? We're going to go ahead and just tuck that into those beads. All right. And that's going to help anchor them. And it's also going to hide that little tail. We still have a little bit of a tail, but that doesn't matter. Our next step is to take our seed beads and our free loose end of our beading wire. And we're just going to start picking up seed beads and stringing them onto our beading wire. Okay. And depending on how good your eyesight is, what kind of hand-eye coordination and manual dexterity you have, this is going to go quick or it's going to go slow, but it's really the only way to do it. You just have to, you know, pick those little tiny beads up onto your beading wire, and you're going to want to get some of them on there, and you're going to want to then take them and thread them down your beading wire till you get to the end. And see where I have that extra little bit of a tail there? Okay. I am going to carefully tuck those into that wire. Okay. Now, I'm going to just take my wire, the end of my wire, and I'm going to continue picking up seed beads and stringing them onto my beading wire until I get the hanger part of the length part of my suncatcher as long as I want it. And I'm going to leave about 3 to 4 inches to work with when I'm done. And I'm not going to make you guys watch me string beads for about 10 minutes. So I'm going to pause this and come back when I'm done. Okay, so I have my cord as long as I want it with the seed beads. So I'm going to show you guys how to finish. Okay, and I'm going to zoom you in a little bit. All right. Hopefully that's enough that you can see. To finish up, you're going to need your strung crystal and beads. You're going to need a crimp bead. You're going to need a split ring, okay? You're going to need your needle nose pliers, and you're going to need your wire clippers. So, first thing you want to do to finish this off is you want to string the end of your bead wire through the crimp bead, okay? All right. And then you want to string it through your split ring. All right. And back around through your crimp bead. Okay. Like what we did with the crystal. But another thing we're going to do now that's a little bit different is we are going to string some of these seed beads that are already on your cord, your bead wire, about a 1/2 inch or so of them back through. Okay, so it kind of looks like this. All right, you have your bead wire. It's come through the crimp bead, through the split ring, through the crimp bead, and then through between a 1/2 inch to an inch of your seed beads. And then this little extra tail that's here, you're going to take your needle nose pliers and you're only going to grip it, and you're going to gently pick up the slack. Do you see how this is pulling everything taut? All right, but you don't want to pull it all the way taut to your split ring because you have to have room to crush your crimp bead. So what we're going to do now, okay, is we're going to crush our crimp bead. All right. And you're going to give it a good crush, right? And see, you've got this extra little tail here. You're going to take your wire clippers and you're going to very carefully cut that extra little bit off without cutting your main bead wire. Okay, and then you're just going to straighten everything up and you're done. And that is how it is done. So just to go over the steps, you're going to take your bead wire, you're going to thread it through a crimp bead, through the hole in your crystal, back through the crimp bead. You're going to crimp your crimp bead, crush it completely. Then you're going to thread on any decorative beads you might want, okay? And then you're going to thread on all of your seed beads for as long as you want your suncatcher to be, plus about 2 to 3 inches. Then you're going to take your bead wire, put it through a crimp bead, through a split ring, back through the crimp bead, back through the little seed beads for about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Then you're going to carefully pull it taut with your needle nose pliers, and then you're going to crush that crimp bead. And that's that. That is the project.